Okay, this review, it's gonna be a little bit rushed. It's scuffed. It's not super great and unacademic in a lot of ways. But you know what? I'm getting it done. That's what matters. We're getting into it. Let's go. This is my presentation, Pop Culture and Identity, about a review a review of the film The Velvet Goldmine. So the paper I'm going to be talking about is a review done by Felicia Feaster and Brett Wood from Film Quarterly Magazine, Volume 53, issue number 1, papers or pages 42 to 44. So the paper makes a lot of points about the film. A lot of it is basic summary, as many reviews are, because some reviews aren't just for people who watch the film, it's also kind of a thing to get people to watch the film if they haven't seen it. But um it's also a review of things that happen in the film, as well as talking about the characters and the historical influences being dandyism, glam rock, and queer culture and stuff. But there's one major point made in the article that I'll be focusing on, and then we'll tackle that a little bit later. So the film itself, The Velvet Goldmine, there's a lot of things about it, very psychedelic, very strange, but there's a couple main points. And by couple, I mean more than three or two. So it's not a couple, it's more than that. Anyway, is a collection of points that I feel, boil down to at least the main points of the film being how the industry can change people, self acceptance, sexuality, gender norms, what music means to people, sex, and drugs. These themes permeate throughout the film and crop up frequently throughout the different timelines presented in the film. The three timelines being, um, the backstory of the idols, and then the news reporter actively trying to get information and interviewing people, and then the news reporter's own backstory. And these themes all tie through all of that. Now, the point made in the article that I'm going to be focusing on is self-acceptance, sexuality, and what music means to people. The article boils it down to how the film idealizes figures and how that forms us from children to adults, or from childhood to adulthood. The article makes a lot of points kind of honing on the childhood aspect. um I slightly disagree with that, given that the film, it doesn't really show characters as children. It does for like one scene, but not really. I guess also at the beginning, but that's mostly for setting up the jewel that has its own thematics to it. But my point being, like, our focal point character, for the most part, being the news anchor, or not news anchor, but like the reporter trying to get information. When we see his past, it's a couple of years back, but like he's still very much like an adult or a teenager, not exactly a child. Um, Although he does have some childlike, you know, activities he does, like when he plays with toys and stuff. But overall, like more like teenagers, like the kind of age where you are coming into yourself. um and that brings me to my thesis, which largely aligns with the article. um that being that The Velvet Goldmine is a film about the relationship between people and their idols, how idols can inspire us and help us become truer to ourselves, but they themselves are not free of criticism and have their own demons to face. We see this a lot in the film with kind of the whole point why the news person is so focused on this investigation. He was sort of flippantly assigned this by his team, but he becomes very attached to it because the idols involved are from his childhood. They are what make him who he is. And I myself can relate to this a lot because I have sort of an infatuation with like Lil Nas X, which is a major pop star and rapper. Um because he was one of the largest influences of a black queer person in the mainstream, making moves um, and making really good music in modern times. Obviously, there's people like Prince and stuff of the past, but in that period, as addressed in the film, their sexuality is largely like kept vague or it changes flippantly, which reflects, real life because you couldn't say that. But and in the film, the um the major singer, he has a wife, but he also sleeps with men sometimes. He says, oh, if his fans see him as a fruit, well, that's not all wrong. But he doesn't like openly date men or make political statements about that. But modern people like Lil Nas X are major influences because it shows like a positive representation of a modern black queer man who's open about it. And that influences how I view myself, my style, what I value in other people, is very important to me. And we could also see that in the film and how over time the reporter was able to dress how he wanted to dress, present himself to other people. And although we see he's criticized for it either directly by his parents or by weird glances from strangers, he's able to develop into himself for the most part and receive approval from his, one of his idols and given the green locket that was originally from the idol who got shot or fake shot on stage. The article, um, the Film Quarterly article talks about how the gem represents sort of being an outsider. And I sort of agree because the beginning of this film is very strange. It reminds me a lot of oddly enough the live action Super Mario Bros movie. Because it has such a strange, surreal, supernatural aspect to it that the film embraces, but doesn't address it past the beginning part of it, which is very interesting. But the thematic point of the gem, I agree with the article's assessment being about being othered and ascending beyond traditional views of gender and sexuality and just being yourself. And at the end of the film, when the reporter receives that gem, it's the article says that it represents him turning into an adult. um and the article slightly phrases it as like he's abandoning his childhood. Well, I would argue that it's more of an embrace of it, like he's assimilating his past self with his current self, where he's able to move on from his traumas and be who he always wanted to be, and hold on to his idols, even though by this point in the film his idols have been bashed and he's discovered some of the like bad truths about them, and even still he's able to take the good from it. um uh well, in some cases that means only sleeping with them as well as incorporating it into yourself and um self-actualizing, becoming who you want to be, regardless of the past. Um and the film's existence also leads into this, because the film was supposed to be a fan fiction for David Bowie, and they weren't allowed to use image specifically or a lot of his songs. But even despite that, they still made a film that's largely an homage to him, or as described in our readings in the class, a fan fiction about him. And how that kind of shows the power of fans and their relationship to their idols, to where Even though, legally this is kind of iffy, this person means so much to me that I'm going to make this film, this art piece, so I can express myself and show how important it is for these idols are to our lives and how they influence us. Now, in modern times, we're able to more separate, the how we feel about the artists and the actual artists themselves with people like Chapel Roan talking about or advocating for independence and being treated nice and not being objectified into just this fictional character that she puts on and that people feel close to. um so in modern times we're able to separate that, but we should still be able to accept the influences other people have to us and use it to grow. In the film we don't see the reporter chasing after um the idols after the end of the film. After he receives his closure, he doesn't pretend that he's best friends of them, because he understands them more as like, oh, they're just people with crazy lives that happen to make me who I am. So that is all the main points I had. Here's my source decided. I apologize for this being probably not good, but you know what? You live and you learn, in the words of Shadow the Hedgehog. All right, well, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.